What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about kind of the idea behind, a concern that I think some of us may have when we are discussing like military active duty forces being deployed and enacted uh, on our, in our cities across the United States and everything. Yes, I'm staying in this kind of vein right now. Um, to what extent, or the concern around, like, how much or what parts of the military themselves could or would decide to dissent themselves? So, like, or would, they just go along with their orders and do what they're told to do? And that's, I think, always been a concern to some degree of any power wielded by, the executive branch, like a president or something, commanding the U.S. Army, or whatever, National Guard, Marines, whatever, any military force on our streets, or to use them in a manner against, the public. How much dissent there would be within the within the government, I mean, within the military, to push back against that. We saw previously in this first administration where you had a lot of generals and stuff push back against him, in certain on certain things. Basically, like, look, the military is not. We are not here for that. Um, that we swore an oath to serve the you know the country, but under the protection of its citizens, not under the protection of you. Um, and so there's, it has been a concern, but now that you don't have a lot of those generals, those upper generals, there to butt up against, him or anybody in his administration under the control, like, Pete Hegseth or whatever. Um, to what extent, the army, or any, or I know, army is like just any type of military that would, member or whatever, or how much, what percentage of the military could potentially be a concern for whether or not they, at what point they would consider the idea of dissenting against the administration. Um, we have a a, a, a viral protester, a protester that went viral. I should say that it's not a viral protest. A protester that went viral for a speech that he was given to anti-ICE demonstrations in LA. And I think the speech itself went viral on its own, but then it took another leap, went kind of super viral because of allegations that or people thinking that this person was Kurt Russell's son. It has been understood after, at this point, that it is not Kurt Russell's son. He has been identified as Aaron Roger, I think. If I'm not mistaken. No, Aaron Fisher. Sorry, Aaron Fisher. Aaron Rodgers. No, it wasn't the football player. Aaron Fisher. So, here we are. Let me swap over. Here is the man, the protester, the legend. All right, here's what he had to say. He was apparently talking to some, what it seems to be either ICE or some type of federal military like group. I don't know if they're National Guard necessarily. I don't really necessarily know the difference, or whether they actually perhaps may have been Marine at this point. I'm not sure exactly. I think this may have been before that, but here he is giving it. And the speech. The speech is what is um, interesting, and I think for the most part, he addresses some really key questions that any military personnel at some point I feel needs to consider. So let's watch.
Feel tough with your assault rifles and your sticks. You should be standing here with us. You're on the wrong side of history. We know you got a job to do, but you took an oath to the Constitution, not to the fascists in the White House. Think about what you're doing now. Think about what this means. Coming into our community. Peaceful fucking community. People working their jobs. They send in men in military fatigues. Weapons of war into our communities. And you stand here and you allow it. I am sick and tired of it. You should be sick and tired of it. You think any of these people in the White House sending you these commands give a fuck about you? Not one of them do. They laugh at you. Our president laughs at you. He calls you fools. He said the people who died overseas in the military were chumps. That's who you're defending right now. Every last. Think about your place in history, ladies and gentlemen. Ask yourself when you wake up tomorrow. I don't know if you have kids. Ask yourself the future you want for your children. Is it this? You can answer me. Is it this? Do you feel good about this? You're tough behind your fucking masks and your fatigues and with your weapons, but how do you feel on the inside? This is our fucking community, and we will fight for it if we have to. Whose streets? Whose streets? Whose streets?
Our streets!
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 Feel tough.
Okay, so that was the video. And he was he was passionate for sure. But the underlying thing there that we've spoken is, how, yes, you're following orders, and I understand that. But at what point do you think to yourself that the orders that are being given to you, that you at this point are abiding by, at what point does it go too far? And it's not to say that what they are doing in this moment is going too far. And that's a different discussion. It's at what point, to them personally, though, if an order was given to them to go further, at what point would they decide that it's too far? Do they feel good about the fact, even in this moment now, do they feel good about the fact that they are where they are in the order that's been given to them at this moment? That they are being deployed. Now, granted, it looks like they're just defending a federal building, more or less. Standing, to protect that in case something was to go crazy or something. But although these are look to seem peaceful protesters, with no problem. They're just standing there against ICE and the practices that ICE has been doing in the area. But that's the question that I am bringing to this video is, at what point concerned should we be that any extent of the military um, could be used against us? We always see this type of stuff happening in other countries, like, other countries that we would consider like third world or whatever, or like, not civilized or not, democratic or whatever the case, or whatever you want to term it. And it's like this default for us that shit there we would never have to worry about, right? But with all that's been going on, and with the rhetoric of force that's being wielded in media by the likes of Trump and some of his goons in his administration, the things that we've kind of discussed today in other videos, the question of how far they will go trying to push back against dissent using force, and to what extent that force that they are trying to use, aka our military, would actually go along with it, would actually obey by those orders, would actually, potentially go what we would consider and have always considered too far for America. And then in the midst of all this, we start seeing the videos and of Trump doing a rally at Fort Bragg. Now, Fort Bragg is in North Carolina. It's just like a special forces type of, like, what they deal in mostly. And while the speech itself is a typical Trump speech, and he's there highlighting the idea that Fort Bragg was renamed back to Fort Bragg. I think it was changed. I can't remember what it was changed to, but it was turned around and then changed back to Fort Bragg. And that's the idea here. He's like, yes, I got it back to Fort Bragg, and they're all cheering and they're like happy and all that shit. But then you have instances where Trump does Trump, and he does his stupid little antics towards different things. And like in this moment here, he's, once again talking about the fake news. Now before this, Pete Hegseth comes on, and I've got a little snip of that too. And you could see there is quite an enthusiasm in this group of people. And I don't know if this is a representation of the entire of Fort Bragg or not. It could just be solely those in the in the area that support Trump. I don't know, but I don't think at any point I saw like the full extent of the people that were there, how many was there, but they were clearly fans, if not supporters, of Trump. And in this moment, he's, like I said, speaks about the fake news, and they laugh at it and make a big joke about it, the crowd and all. And then he even at one point states make this little joke about Biden, and about crowd size, as if that matters, It's so silly that that kind of shit is still being brought up. And anyways, and they laugh at that too and make a big like mockery like thing about it too. And while those are minute things, um, you would the idea behind the military for many is a sense of self-discipline, and a sense of self-discipline to the point that you in most cases would not like show some blatant direction of your bias. Now, that's not to say that you don't have the right to believe or agree or whatever, but like I said, there feels like, and of course, they're all, I'm sure, at ease, and this is supposed to be fun and they're supposed to be interactive, but it just comes off to me as silly that this is a military group and they're engaging in this just silly rhetoric, childish rhetoric that that he still uses in these rallies. So anyway,
News for the fake news back there, the fake news, ladies and gentlemen. Look at them all. Oh, yeah, what I have to put up with. Fake news. What I have.
so it almost comes across as if there's somebody with a sign somewhere going, "Boo, boo, boo," like trying to. It's just the weird, but either way, you're getting the boos, you're getting the laughter, they're making fun of the whole thing.
Have to put up with, but they're all right. They've been very nice today. They were impressed with that display, I can tell you that. I think it took them a little by surprise, but for a little breaking news,
And then he goes on, he names off a whole bunch of other force or military bases that names are changed back, delivering out all these different names, which the reason why many of them were changed is because of the connections that these leaders that or people that they were named after, connections to whatever parts of history that many of us are not necessarily proud of. But anyways, and they at that point they're cheering at all those as well, which is whatever. It's here and now. It's just, but then,
I like to keep it going, right? Announced that today to you for the first time. They said, "Why didn't you wait till Saturday?" I said, you never had a crowd this big. That's an honor. You think this crowd would have showed up for Biden? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to thank so many great leaders.
That's the kind of silliness I'm talking about. They're engaging in this little silliness. Like I said, okay, fine, whatever. This is minute. It's not a big deal. But it goes to the deeper question, and this is just one place, but it goes to the deeper question of just how much of the military is in favor of Trump. And there's been weird, conflicting, I think, for the most part, conflicting data to state, how much of the military truly supports them or doesn't support them. And it could be different aspects of the military, different divisions of the military that have more influence here, more influence there, or have more, support here, more support there. But this still goes to the question, which at this point, for many of us, because of that support, and it brings concern to the influence or the action that they would be willing to take, right? And then of course you got Pete Heseth here. He's making some speak about comparison that this is not, a college grounds where your woke ideology and your other stuff is not welcome here, and they cheer and hoop and holler and all that stuff.
Warfighting, lethality. We're not a college or a university. We're not interested in your woke garbage and your political correctness.
Silly stuff like that. That, honestly has nothing to do with any of this. But nevertheless, like I said, I'm admitting that this is petty and stupid in this form, but it still brings concern for me. The amount of support and the amount of it feels to be some adoration towards this event, towards Trump, towards that you have to start concerning if you're someone from a place that is concerned with what the Trump and his regime is doing in America right now, and with the events of this week and the events that are coming forward in the coming days and the concerns around those, that you start to have to really ponder and pay attention and watch and clue into just how much, because this administration, that's what they seem to be doing, is pushing as much as they can to see just how far they can go. And not only just how far they can go, but how far we as society will allow them to go. How much we will accept, how much we will, or not even accept, but how much will we take. And I think we have the same concern and question for the military as well. How much will they accept? How much will they take? How much will they allow from this administration in, directing them for certain orders and certain activities and whatnot. So that is a concern. But to leave on a happy note here, and we have to keep watching that, but to leave on a happy note here, I also have on the flip side of that, this military veteran who joined in after the deployment of Marines to LA. She joined in decked out in her uniform in anti-ICE protest in Dallas. And this is what she had to say.
We are not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called upon innocent protesters. We, in our oath to serve, we serve the people of the United States. The Constitution, these constitutional rights are being stripped and just denied, and the military will not be pawns to that. So I'm calling upon the conscience of military members who served previously and now. We have a conscience, we have a mind, and we have a duty and moral obligation to say no and resist evil.
To resist evil orders. It got cut short somehow. So this is, on a light note, or on a more positive note, rather, this gives you some hope that there clearly is military members, and we've seen this. It's not like we haven't seen this, but there are clearly military members, current and past, who have come out against Trump and his regime and actions being taken. And so and I say this to kind of pull back the concern to at least a little bit that there is resistance even in the areas where you might have the tendency to have some fear or have some concern for. That there is resistance, even in the areas that you wouldn't think, even in GOP, even in Republican constituents and citizens. There is dissent. There are people who are coming out and are showing red lines, showing that whoa, this is going too far. Maybe they're not actively coming out against him, but they're like suggesting or warning the administration, hey, look, this is going too far. This doesn't look good. This is not going to come out like you think it is. Let's pull back. Let's get back in line to, stick with the things that we wanted you to do. Just don't go too crazy. Like, there is some dissent, even in places you wouldn't expect. So, that's not to say that there isn't room for concern, because there certainly is. Okay. But, I have the utmost, feeling that the majority of our military is made up of men and women who do have common sense, who do have morals, who do have a sense of obligation and respect to American citizens. So I don't think that even under potential pressure and from Trump and his regime, or Pete Hegseth or whoever would give the orders, or could potentially give orders that we would be concerned with, that there could be a very large pushback. I feel like that maybe even what has happened in LA, the deployment of those that have been deployed to LA, that probably more or less is getting close to a red line for even them. If they were asked to go beyond just standing in defense, in other words, being turned from a defensive mechanism to an offensive mechanism, there would probably be quite the pushback. So, at least I'm hoping. But let me know what you think of all this. Are there concerns to be had? To what extent are those concerns? I honestly think that, like I said, majority, I think we more or less would not have a problem, or we should not be concerned, would actually go past a red line that we would hold, that we would expect them to hold. Do I think that there is a small percentage of the military that might even be happy to do things that we would not want them to do? Very possible. Very possible. But I do think it's a very small. I hope it's a very small. I do think it's a very small amount. Small enough that it would not be effective. So, anyways, thank you very much, and until next time, peace. ClearTalk. I'm out.